online.
They're online.
Yeah.
Beide moeten bijna zeggen, de is wel gezet thuis. Ja, ja. Like the average, yes, I travel quite a lot.
Yes.
It's much appreciated.
Can I please invite you all to have a seat?
Yeah.
Some people are already waiting for us online, so we have people from Fabelfriend, from MDB, from Digital, just top of mind like that, already online, waiting for us to start. So I'm going
Tell
to
us when the stream is on, or it's.
It is on.
It is on. Wow, live on air. There we go. Pierre, this is your house. Okay, so I let you do the opening. We're jumping on stage like this. Go ahead.
Thanks to all for being here. I'm very happy that we are allowed to do this type of events again. I'm just back from Paris, where I was at IPIM, the first big fair again after COVID. So it's really a pleasure to have all of you here in our new offices. With a team that's really a team that I like, that we also volunteered to host, Alessandra. So thank you for having this meeting on open banking with us. I'm also happy to see in these times a lot of people coming up. I also understand that there's a lot of people joining us online. I hope that the technology works as it should, and that you're all able to follow in a good way. So for today, it will be about open banking. I think Toon will give a more detailed intro on what we would like to cover today. But as you know, the agenda, you've all read it online. We have a number of speakers. I'm also very happy that Arnaud Sirtain was willing to present his open banking barometer. That will be very interesting to hear about him. What's going on in the market today, and to get a better sense of what's going on in the market today. When after the barometer, we will have some insights from different players in the market. Happy to see Marc Lenné from iBanity also here, a real fintech player, and a fintech player that's already in the market for a long time. From Magenta, Lynn Collier, who has candidated to represent the banking industry and the more classic players in the market, and Peter Lambrechts from Oki, so who will be also giving some industry insights. When we've got all those insights together, it would be great to have a panel led by Toon, and Toon will be joined by Luc Guillain of Inflag and Georges Libert from Smart for Invest. And I hope that we will get some interactivity during the session, which is always greatly appreciated by myself, but also by the FinTech Belgium organizers, that we get an interactive debate at some stage later today. So Toon, with that, I would like to welcome you and give.
Thanks for the opening address. You've done it very well, and everybody just know that you can be interactive during the talks too. We will relay the questions to the speakers afterwards. So without further ado, I would like to invite Arnaud Sirtain to reveal the findings of the Open Banking Barometer 2021. So we're going to do this every year, right?
Hopefully, yes.
Yes, that's good.
Plenty interesting challenge that we have.
So we're gonna learn all about that. So first,
okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Nice to have a real event tonight. So indeed, as just said by Tone, we'd like to give you a bit of insight of the PSD2 barometer that we made together with FinTech Belgium. So our objective was really to have a clear state of the open banking as it is today. We try to identify with different fintech and different banks, see what are the main challenge, what are the expected evolution moving from an open banking to an open finance, and try to define what are exactly the expectations for the future. So as just said, we organized two different surveys to have the view of the fintech, to have the view on the banks, and in the end, we need to have 11 fintech responding to the survey and as well 3 banks. So let's have a look to the fintech's result right now. It's obvious that when the PSD2 start to enter into effect 2 years ago, that it brought a lot of opportunities for the different fintech, but as well some challenges. We were talking in the survey about some growth possibilities, about new services, new technology that were bring on the table. As well, a lot of partnership were considered by the different fintech in that context. And one thing that was very interesting as well is that it was really perceived as an opportunity to improve the user experience in the payment journey that they are following. On the contrary, there were some challenges, I just said. Some technical issues were raised as well. There were some organizational points that were bring on the table. Few examples over here. So we all heard about the complexity to implement the strong customer authentication. That was, of course, one of the main challenge to have that bring in place and to have as well in link to that a nice experience for the user to convince them to go in that process and to do that on a frequent way, because as you know, we have to renew that kind of process of authentication on a regular quarterly basis. There was as well some complexity from the technical side, because when the first API came from the ASPSP on the market, there were some, and there are still some issues mentioned today about stability, about data qualities, on all those aspects. There's still some room for improvement. If you're now looking from an organizational point of view, another question that came on the table is getting the license. Getting the license means two important things. The first one is that you have an organizational question internally. You need to adapt your organization towards the requirement of the regulator that are provided, but as well, you need to be internally organized to be able to just manage that project to get to the license granted by the different regulator in the different countries. And in the end, something that is not surprising, we had some bad perception of the risk linked to the fact that we are opening all the banking data to external players. That's of course something that were needed to be solved. So looking to that, an interesting question was to know what are the synergies with the different banks. If we are looking to the different responses we received, in 50% of the case, there is no collaboration at all. No collaboration means that the tools, that the APIs and the documentation that are provided are sufficient, that there are no willingness from some fintech to go further than just taking the existing solution, to implement it, potentially to aggregate them as well. In some other case, some fintech perceived the opportunity to bring a strong relationship, try to work on some integration with the bank and bring some added value services on the market. And considering the fact that most of the fintech that we've seen here in Belgium have, of course, the ability to build, integrate innovative solution in a very smooth way on top of all the mandatory requirements that we have in the requirement of the open banking and the PSD2. So, on the contrary, once you have bank solution integrated solution and services promoted by the fintech, it's of course easy to have those fintech pushing them via their distribution channels, such as marketplace or different similar solutions. Future steps, extension of the data that we are using. We were talking a lot about payment. There are, of course, some interest now to extend that to savings account data, insurance data, credit information, to work a little bit on the global overview of personal finance analysis for the user of the different solution based on the PSD2. So as well, when you are accessing to all those data, there's an interesting thing, which is to be able to anonymize some of those information, to build some reporting, to try to identify some trends, see how we can build on those anonymized information, new services, new solutions. Now, I'll give you a few words about the perception of the banks. So as I said, we had 3 banks responding to the survey. So it's probably not the complete view of the market, but it gives some very interesting trends anyway. So looking back to the impact of the PSD2 when it was implemented, we had actually 2 different possible approaches. Or to just consider that you have a regulation and you need to be compliant with that. So taking into consideration the requirement, you can work in a cost-saving strategy, but to be able to provide your APIs, to be able to provide the right necessary documentation to work with the API you develop. Or you can think a bit more globally, looking to improving the customer experience through the integration of various services. And this can be driven indeed by a fear of losing some market share when we are looking, for instance, to new innovative player. I'm thinking about neobank of some of the larger banks that are considering integrating a lot of different APIs and services in their environment. So main challenges for them, not a surprise, when you have to open your banking environment, there are of course a huge requirement, which is in terms of budget and employees, but as well, and this is coming quite often in all the answers that we received in the survey, there is a legal complexity that you have to consider as well. There is a huge amount of points to be considered from a legal point of view to become compliant, which means that it requires some very detailed expertise, and that it's as well a very long journey to manage to respond to every single point to get your agreement. Looking to the way the banks are perceiving the synergies with the fintechs, so at least when we are looking to the banks who responded to the survey, it's obvious that it's more often the largest, the biggest banks that are working on integrating solutions from different fintech, because in terms of innovation, as you can imagine, there is huge budget to be used for that. We had some example of synergies that were mentioned in the survey. Some of the participants indicate that they can take from the fintech some technological elements that can be included in the banking environment as a real leverage for innovation, but it does not really give a significant visible change in the way the application from the banks are working, but at least there is a technology to be integrated. And so in that sense, the banks can help fintech to promote their solution from a technical point of view. Second thing is that if you're looking now to attractivity of some of the proposed services, user experience and so on, then by promoting innovative solution from the fintech, you can as well from a banking point of view reach new audience, bigger audience, and so improve in some case your market target, I would say. And finally, with the expertise in implementation of solutions from the bank point of view, there is as well a possibility for some dedicated department from the bank to assist the fintech in developing, promoting the solution, and improving the services they have imagined. Few words about the future steps. 2 of the 3 banks who responded mentioned that there are still major changes to come. Are we talking about PSD3 or not? That's to be seen, but potentially that's an interesting question to discuss. What we have seen is that there is a strong willingness to have a global payment schemes around the open banking and the open finance. There is as well a need from the different players to have kind of standardization of the process, the speed to make the implementation, and to progress with the different evolutions as well. Willingness to share information about securities, saving account, that was as well mentioned from a fintech point of view, and in the end, change a bit the mindset that we have from the different consumer in terms of perceiving the opportunities that you have through the open banking, and changing the perception about the security and the safety of having access to the different data in an open banking, open finance world. A few conclusions. So I already mentioned that the accreditation part is something very complex with the different regulator. There is a willingness at both sides, fintech and banks, to have simplifications of all the process. That's something that's obvious for almost all the participants of the survey. There is a need to standardize all the interface for the connectivity at the side of merchant, at the side of bank. So basically, we are really looking to have one global authority being able to ensure an interoperability between all the players, being able to standardize the process and to offer very global and well-organized ecosystem around all that, which means as well that there is a need to standardize all the process around the definition of the rules, the passporting regulation, and so on. Technically speaking, it means that, and we heard about that in the past days, the willingness to have a central switching, to have global directories, common API specs for fintech or schemes or bank is something that is more and more coming on the table by various players. So, yes, in combination to that, we can as well mention standardized legal framework, which is a bit of complementarity to that question of global scheme and standardization. That's it for that presentation to start with. So thank you for FinTech Belgium to allowing us to work on that barometer. And I would like to thank as well Julie from Pulse Consult to help a lot to make that happen and to build the whole barometer for both FinTech and banks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. Our next speaker has been around for a while when it comes to integrating PSD2. So I would like to invite Marc from Ibanity, part of Isabel Group, to tell us the other side of not just interviewing people what was hard, but going through it, the hassle of connecting with the banks and making sure the whole flow works. So we look forward to your stories from the trenches.
Thanks for the introduction, Toon. First of all, I'm actually happy to see that some banks are willing to share securities accounts and savings accounts. So if this is something you want to discuss, please talk to me, because that's something we've been looking into for a while now. For those who have seen at least the numbers I shared last year, where we explained the growth that we saw in the traffic on our platform. So I want to make a big disclaimer that this is only, I would say, growth numbers from our platform. It does not represent at all the full market itself. In the last 6 months, we've seen almost a doubling of the traffic on our platform, in the sense that we're talking about the numbers of accounts that have been accessed through Ibanity. Last year, we actually did a ×10. This year, it's probably going to be close to a ×2, ×3, ×4. We don't know yet, because we still have customers to launch end of this year. But what we see is confirming a bit what we said last year, in the sense that we see something is happening, but it's not exploding as it should. But it's happening. Something is growing. I need also to say that about 60% of the traffic we receive is for B2C use cases and 40% for B2B use cases. In the world of payments themselves, it's almost only B2C. I'm going to also explain a bit why, by saying, okay, what about payment initiation? Right now, the payments we receive through us is almost, not even relevant in terms of traffic. Why is that? Because on B2C, cards are still there. There for a long time. They're much easier to use than bank SEA. I'm sorry to say that, but banks are here to be used still for some months or years to come. So in the B2C space, it doesn't really bring much added value to switch to a PSD2 interface, but that's something that probably a lot of you already knew. There were, however, a lot of hopes on bulk payments. because in the B2B space, being able to do bulk payments is kind of a must. And if you can provide something that's easier to do than what's available to the banks or in the current interface that are available, then this is something you can really leverage on. Now, the problem with bulk payments in itself, it's that it came quite late. So it's only, I would say, before the summer that we start to see really adoption by the banks, bulk payment in their APIs, regardless of Belgium, Netherlands, whatever. And so it's really, I'm really talking about all the countries that we cover. And so the problem also there is that when you want to sell bulk payments to a supplier or to a customer or a partner, they're going to ask you which banks you support for bulk payments. If you say you support 2 banks in Belgium or 3 banks in Luxembourg, they're going to tell you, yeah, okay, I mean, that's not enough for me to actually start building a service on. So you need to wait for enough banks in a country to support a specific feature before you can actually sell it as an aggregator or even as a platform selling directly to companies. And so that kind of time to market for the whole bank segment is sometimes an issue for us, because it's not because 1 or 2 banks support a specific feature or specific service that de facto we can sell it, or we can make money on it, or we can help fintechs benefit from it. Because the problem that we have then is that if you release it and you only support 2 banks in a country, then our support is going to get called by all these customers and say, hey, why don't you support bank X or bank Y or bank Z? And then you have to tell them the same story all over again because they have not released it yet. So it's not because some banks are more advanced than others in some countries that it works better. We need to have that critical mass of banks in a country to support specific features in order to really start benefiting from them, and making our customers benefit from them. So that's a little bit why payment initiation is so slow to take off on PSD2, in our opinion. I see Jacques is saying yes to everything I say, so I'm pretty sure they have the same issue at MeetUp. But yeah, that's a little bit sometimes also in the communication we had with the banks, sometimes something they don't understand. They tell us, yeah, but why do you say there's not enough bulk payment in Belgium? Because we have bulk payment. Yeah, okay, but we need more than 1 or 2 or even 3 banks before we can actually do this. So that's a little bit why today, I mean, I could share some numbers, but they're completely irrelevant compared to the numbers that we have, that you can see in the card scheme or whatever else, or even the Bank Contact World or ID or whatever other service we're talking. But we do hope that now that we have bulk payments, at least sufficiently in some countries, and we start to have actually customers integrating our APIs about it, and we also integrate it in our own products, we start to see it picking it up. So maybe in 6 months from now, I can share some better news about this. But so far, most of the traffic and most of the money is on account information. Just last time, I shared a progression from like the split between the different types of banks in terms of account information that we support. Each time 6 months after, or pretty much 6 months after, I would say, what we see is that the mid-tier segment is actually growing, which is kind of interesting. I have no clue why, but that's just the numbers that we can see from what we have in our platform. I think it has to do also sometimes with some of our customers partnering with some of those more mid-tier banks. Maybe it brings some additional traffic on our platform. I don't know. Honestly, it's just an open question and just numbers that I'm sharing with you. Still, of course, Big Four remain the Big Four banks of Belgium. They still hold most of the traffic that we have and most of the consumers and customers that we have. In the Netherlands, I didn't really share the transition because pretty much nothing changed. It's just an exact copy, probably, of the market share that those banks have in the Netherlands, which is quite interesting. I'm not going to share the numbers for other countries because we don't necessarily have traffic on all banks, but in the Netherlands we do. But yeah, it's just to give you an idea that what we see in terms of traffic flowing through our platform is usually quite similar to the actual market share of the banks. It makes perfect sense, obviously, but it also means to us that it's not like one bank is truly trying to push or benefit from it. Otherwise, they would probably grow a bit more than the others. But we don't see that today. We just see a almost perfect reflection of the market share of the bank in the different countries. I thought a lot about how to start bringing more data about banks themselves or countries themselves, and I started thinking, okay, what can we do to make it clear how we perceive, as an aggregator, how we perceive the rating of a specific country. And so I'm not sharing specific numbers, but I'm going to share a 5-star rating of 4 countries today, which are the countries where we have most of our traffic. The 2 main ones are Belgium and the Netherlands. Yeah, Jacques, I'm sorry about that. It's not going to be a perfect rating. But for the Netherlands, it's actually, I would say, our highest rated country for many different reasons. The first one is that I would say those are the APIs that we find the most stable on the market today in Europe. I think it's quite interesting to see because they were quite late to adopt PSD2 as a legislation, and they kind of started a bit later than the others. But now, at least in the surrounding countries of Belgium, they're the ones that we kind of like working with. It probably also is linked to the history they have with the bank coupling, like the link between the accounting software and the bank. So maybe they already have this habit or this culture of being okay to share some of the data with other parties. That doesn't mean that it always happens perfectly, like we had problems today with the Rabobank, but that happens, right? But in terms of stability and really what we get from it, the Netherlands is actually ranks higher than Belgium even. Obviously, still some banks that offer poor TPP support. That's a problem we reported a while ago, but this is something that is usually getting worked on. And also, some of the Dutch banks actually already provide credit card information. So they actually, I think it's ING, and I don't remember the second one, but ING is at least pushing that. So it allows us to test a little bit the market with these types of data in some specific use cases. Belgium, 3 stars, still okay. Huh? I mean, you fail if you're below 2.5, so it's more than 2.5, so 3. We still have quite some issues that are unfortunate, I would say, mostly about the type of justification of an error that we receive. Sometimes a customer cannot link an account, but we don't get any meaningful feedback out of it. And sometimes even the customer support of the bank cannot help. It can be linked to a mandate, it can be linked to something else. I mean, there's really a lot of complexity there that we have to deal with every day, and that also overburdens the support of our product, both from a technical side, but also towards our B2B customers. Yeah, additional mandates to share data. This is still an issue today. So some mandates that people have on accounts don't allow them to share the data to a third party, but they just don't understand that. I mean, I understand that maybe legally that's true, but the customer doesn't get it. The customer is completely confused, and it's harming everyone in the end. It's harming us, it's harming the bank, because then they start saying, you're playing ping pong with me. Yeah, I don't have anywhere else to send you. There's nothing else I can do. If the bank refuses me access to your account and the technical link works, there's nothing I can do for you. And so it's kind of a pain to just say that to a customer, because then usually they say, hey, what bank is supporting you properly? So it doesn't mean that it happens all the time and that we have customers actually changing banks or switching banks because of that, but it's just that they don't get it. So if there's one thing that needs to be fixed as soon as possible, that's this issue with bank mandates, or at least finding a way to get meaningful feedback to them. If they need to go sign another paper at the branch, fine. I mean, but let's be clear about it. Let's say your account access was refused because you're missing a specific mandate, and here's the procedure to go and sign it at the bank. So what we would appreciate there is really explanation from the bank also, what is the procedure? Because right now we're struggling to get it. Poor PSU support from the bank, so PSU being the payment service user, or talking about the end user, the consumer, or the company. Yeah, that's what I said, the ping pong game that sometimes happens. We don't really know where to go, and at some point the customer is feeling lost. That's a little bit one of the really big issue we have today. Good points though, and I think we need to give that to the Belgian banks. The quality of the support towards TPP has drastically improved in all of them, and that's something that we're really grateful for, to be honest. because now we see really that there's more willingness to fix issues when they occur. It doesn't mean we always agree on how to fix them, but at least we see that there's much more reactivity in all of the banks. So thank you for that, for those that are with us. Yes, so now maybe a bit less France and Luxembourg. We still have a lot of instability from certain APIs. In France, unclear error messages when access is denied. That's something we get quite a lot in a lot of banks. We're not necessarily saying that they should let everything go, but at least when the access is denied, we should know why, because then we can inform the customer in the better way possible. Yeah, they also have in some banks a strange 24 hours SCA by default, but you can go in the app and you can switch it to 90 days. And also, again, very difficult processes for PSUs to actually, they just don't get it. And it's not our job to take screens of those banking apps to explain to them how to do it. So if at least we could have a proper documentation on the FAQ of the bank or whatever, I don't care how, but it would be a massive improvement in terms of the kind of experience we can give to the PSU in terms of what we can provide in open banking. In Luxembourg, again, sometimes also the APIs are just too slow. It takes sometimes a few seconds to respond. That's not really acceptable, I would say, in a lot of use cases. Missing data sometimes, but usually that gets resolved by discussing with the bank, which is something that, yeah, we try to do as much as we can. Same problem as in Belgium, additional mandates. You know the drill, you know the problem, Jacques. This is something we also sometimes struggle with in Luxembourg. And today, obviously, that's really harming the development of open banking in Luxembourg for businesses. There's not much we can really do for businesses today if we don't tackle this issue at some point. I mean, the small ones, the SOHOs, that's okay. But as soon as you start going higher into the food chain of SMEs, it becomes just a blocking factor. And so in that sense, it's SCA is really just harming PSD2 altogether and just not delivering promises. Again, this is not just a problem in Luxembourg. We also have that in Belgium, but in Belgium we feel it a bit less, I would say, but probably because we're growing mostly B2B in Luxembourg today. And sometimes, yeah, again, same issue. The banks don't really know how to react, and that provides not really such a good support to the PSU itself. We also have quite a few traffic, a few accounts and some traffic in Spain, Germany, but honestly, in order to really start getting a trend, you need to compare that with the potential amount of accounts in the country and then the number you have, and then you can start seeing, okay, how many banks do we connect to? So before giving a trend on Spain and Germany, we need to make sure we actually have coverage in all that country, meaning accounts in all of those banks, so that we can really provide meaningful information. At this point, this is not the case. So I'm not going to share a rating today about those two countries, but maybe next time. So it's been 2 years. I mean, in 5 days, it's the 2-year anniversary of PSD2. What's going on? Where are we? Not there yet. Momentum intensifies. That's certain. But clearly, it's not yet going fast enough. And maybe some of you will say otherwise, but I think it's a shared feeling by at least all of our customers. Banks seem to be more and more aware of the possibilities that they can get from open banking and also the collaboration with fintech. So we start seeing still positive effects from PSD2, which is that banks seem to have a different mindset, or at least they grow into that mindset, which is good. But again, it's good, but does it help? We will only see it's a lagging metrics. We will only see it later. We're quite interested in the combination of PSD2PI and request to pay. I mean, let's face it, 95–99% of the use cases in B2B today that we serve, whether it's for our customers or even directly to SMEs, is to do invoice reconciliation. I mean, you can talk about forecasting, you talk about all of that. When you go to a company, when you go to an SME and you start talking with them about their problems, the number one problem is invoice reconciliation. So it's nice. You can go in all directions with open banking data. We totally agree. But the number one problem is I need to spend less time reconciliating my payments. And if you cannot solve that with the data that is provided by PSD2 or with the data that is provided by whatever source, they're not going to move to the next step. They're not going to use open banking for something else. At least in the customers that we interview and we do so every week, that's just a given. We need to fix that first. And for that, you need sufficient data quality, stability, and you need at least easy onboarding to some extent. Yes, so improvements on bank side, but again, not fast enough. But what can you expect from a fintech? Of course, it's never going to be fast enough, I guess. And banks are probably going to say that we want it too fast. So I guess that's just the rule of the game. A lot of TPPs in Europe are still relying on alternative solutions, reverse scraping. Honestly, if you look at France, I'm pretty sure 99% of the business is still made on scraping. So it's quite interesting to see the difference between countries. In some countries, you are strongly encouraged to drop alternative methods. In some other countries, it's just a free-for-all until the forest. So it's kind of interesting to see the difference between different countries. Again, PSD2 still is very time-consuming for TPPs, too time-consuming for TPPs. And so this creates a huge barrier to entry for new players, really new players, and smaller companies. So that's a little bit the conclusions so far. There's positive stuff. There's still some obviously things to improve, but let's see what 2021 and 2022 will bring. So that's it from me.
Big thanks for that, Marc, and also in the interactions with the representatives from Luxembourg that are here. But, worth noting that we do have the regulator, the regulatory oversight, the National Bank, FIBELFIN, who are tuned in online. So hello to them. We hope they pay a lot of attention.
You can always call me.
I think they've got your number too. But so yeah, we organize these things to make sure our community learns from each other. And so really happy to welcome Lenfoli on stage from Argenta, who have recently, from the bank side, can I would say give a testimony of how it is for you and how much of the criticism or the constructive elements that Marc just gave you have incorporated.
I'm not personally offended.
You're not a fan. That's a very good start. It means you have a good. You're
It was about all the banks, right?
Yeah, it was about all the banks. And you're very.
There are banks that are better than others.
They're not all equal, you say.
Yes.
Means you're very confident that your help desk is very good, right? So that's good. That's nice to hear. Okay, good. We look forward to what you can share about the glimpses you have.
So I want to begin on a small thing that Rick said, that he mentioned that the banks are starting to see different possibilities, and I would agree with that and say that's indeed true. That's also a little bit what I want to talk about is more on the complete journey of open banking within Argenta. So not on technical aspects. I'm not the right person to talk about that, but more on, let's say, the strategy, kind of the framework where we are now. Talk a little bit about the journey to understand what the mindset is and how we at Argenta look at open banking. A small anecdote for this picture on the background as well is this is the same picture that we used to bring the open banking strategy towards the board, and we were still we had to take the first steps. So that was a bit kind of the vision we were going for. Now I hope we're a little bit some more steps higher. I'm sure about it. That was kind of the mindset that we were. It's a long journey. There are a lot of steps to take. I don't know where the stairs end, but we will see. But I want to talk a little bit about that. The first thing is kind of how we define open banking, because if you Google it and you talk to different people, they will all kind of have their own definition, a little bit more technical, a little bit more around collaboration, broader on fintech. But I thought it was a good insight to just say how we define it and how do we look internally at, okay, is this open banking or not? So we see it as a role because you have many different roles that you can play as a bank within the whole ecosystem. We look definitely at the customer journey, so we try to look at how can we enhance the existing customer journeys that we have, and also broadly within Argenta, so in banking, lending, insurance, and also in investing. So it gives you an idea of the scope. We look at it broadly, not only, let's say, in daily banking, not only in our app. It's also not only about data, but also about products and services. It's also partnerships, but especially innovative partnerships, because I had the question before, is every partnership that Argenta is going to do now an open banking partnership, and do we have to look at this kind of strategy? No, of course not. So it's important that those are innovative partnerships when we're looking at the products and services and where the data is being used. But also, of course, we're looking at modern technical standards. I don't only want to say APIs because we look at it more broadly. This is open banking for us is beyond PSD2. PSD2 was the compliant part, and then we were thinking, okay, we made investments. Now, what can we do with it? And we immediately looked at it in a much broader perspective. And the last one is very important, is also that we want to look at it. It always has to be in line with our purpose and value proposition. So it's an internal check and a filter for us. We're not going to do everything. We don't have large divisions experimenting, doing proof of concepts all the time and just see what sticks. We really want to start from our own purpose and value proposition that we already have, our strength within the market. That's also where we started when we were started on the journey to define the open banking strategy. So we looked at our purpose, which is in an unpredictable world doing something extraordinary in the financial sector, is really taking care of our customers and employees in a thoroughly responsible way. So really staying responsible, but especially also our value proposition where we are strong today with our customers is being very straightforward, just keeping it simple, using normal language, those kinds of things, being very price conscious in all our products and services as well. Being a trusted partner, also face-to-face in a personal relationship, not only digital, but with a true advisor also, and being sustainable, but on the different aspects. So not only ecological, but also social and governance as well is really embedded with us, and our customers expect it, and it's also what we want to try to achieve. But this is an important filter, which we use to look at the market and also see the different opportunities. Because the downside of open banking is there are thousands and thousands of possibilities, new business models, new products. It's a bit too much to cope with. So we don't want to do everything, but we want to look at the different opportunities. And we think that PSD2 and open banking has grown at a certain phase where now the possibilities are there, that it's easy to match with your purpose and your own value proposition. There are synergies that you can find. Maybe in the beginning it was a little bit more difficult. There were some synergies where maybe we thought, okay, we don't see a lot of opportunities there. It doesn't really fit with Argenta. But now we came at a phase where we definitely saw that. And if you want to put it in three areas where we saw opportunities and real synergies is, of course, enhancing different things like I mentioned, our value proposition, what we're already good at, further enhance that with offerings that other fintechs have within partnerships, and also differentiate within that value proposition. So further enhance differentiation maybe in other customer segments also. Of course, the app usage is going up, but we want to keep it seen going up within our app and just the digital adoption. And also, as I mentioned, existing customer journeys, analyze them again, look at them again in a modern sense. Where can we use data to enhance those customer journeys? And look at it broadly. Could be in living, could be in insurance, investing. Of course, it's also growing. Look at new customer segments. I also saw it in the report. It's apparently shared with other banks as well, of course. And also looking at new business models, possibilities for fee revenue, going away from only interest, only revenue. And the last part is very important, especially for us, is to, within those partnerships, really look to co-innovate with the different fintechs, to also scout and discover the market evolutions, because it goes very fast. It's not always easy to do it only from inside. If you have that partnership, you can create a win-win situation where also the fintech follows those market evolutions and you can act on it more quickly. And also the culture is important. Not that there is no innovation culture, but it's another culture. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you to look at other things, and you will eventually learn a lot of things from it. So that's how we frame. Okay, these opportunities are there, and these are the synergies that we see that match with our values, with our strategy, and our corporate goals, let's say. Which we try to translate, and this is like a very short version of it in kind of an open banking position. You can say it's a strategy. But why did we need this? Because we as Argenta, we don't want to become like a platform bank. And after a while, people internally tend to think that is the only way. If you want to do something in open banking, PSD2, you have to become a platform bank, build a super app, those kinds of things. And our answer was more like, no, there are other roads that you can take within open banking. You don't have to always take that position. You don't have to create like a tab in your app with these are extra services and have 25 extra services. It's not necessary to do something in open banking. So that's why we used a positioning, let's say, strategy where we still do what we're good at, but don't have to do everything. So that means maximizing the use of our existing channels still. It doesn't mean it's exclusively, but we believe in the strength of our channels. So let's use that. We see a lot of cases there where it's possible. We want to stay at the core and also support the core. And by that, we mean more like the traditional products and services, but we also make the change that we can go a little bit beyond that, but there always has to be a clear link with the financial products and services that we already have. So not like soccer videos in the app, I'm sorry for KBC, but it's always an easy example to make because that's a little bit too far for us from the core. So the link has to be clear, has to be there for the customer as well, because just for us, for Agenta, it will not match with the value proposition that we have. And also where we go further is more in selective partnering. We believe that they're strengthening, really creating win-win, also win for the customer situation. And we believe in more selective partnering, going more to, let's say, maybe premium APIs, but not like the platform banking, create 300 APIs and be all open. Okay, PSD2, you have to be open in a certain extent. We want to leverage that as well, but also choose, let's say, fintech partners that really match with our purpose and our value proposition, and really try to enhance that and maximize that relationship. And there are different ways that, of course, we look at fintech, but it's for everyone here in the room. It's I think it's obvious. You can see them as competitors, of course. Maybe we see some of the fintechs also as competitors. I saw it in the survey as well. Scared. There's some fear of market share. That's possible maybe in certain niches, but especially also really as partners to be able to co-innovate, sit around the table to think about new cases as well. And of course, maybe in the future, maybe now we're not there yet, but also as of course customers in a whole kind of new relationship within the ecosystem. Now, I had to talk a little bit about the first partnership also, because shortly after we created the open banking strategy, we want to make it very concrete. That was important. And afterwards, we immediately got the opportunity to partner with Kate. So we immediately went into real implementation of the strategy. And I can't go into details because of time, but we can talk afterwards about it. But first, it was important that you have immediately first realization of the open banking strategy. It created a lot of momentum, a lot of interest, broader in the bank as well, about what open banking can mean for different divisions, for example, insurance, investing, those kinds of things. It took 9 months from the first ideation to launch, which I think for a bank is very fast. But I wanted to stress that the fact that there was a strategy and a clear framework, what you want to do, what we especially don't want to do, that was important. Then it accelerated. But I have some other learnings in the end of the presentation also. I think 3 months of implementation, and now in August we are live. In end of July we did the soft launch as well. And for us the results are already beyond expectations. So for us it was really the first big case around open banking. But really see that the win-win-win. I mean, for us, for Kate, for the fintech partner, and also for the customer, we spent a lot of time making sure that synergy was right, that we had a lot of trust, that triple win was really going to be there. So now we're seeing the first results. We're happy in creating a lot of momentum, but of course it's only the beginning of the journey. What was important there to internally talk about it was the fit with the purpose, with our value proposition, also with our brand. Let's talk shortly a little bit about the future. How we look at it is that I don't want to go into different trends, but just in a very high level general view that like mobile banking, open banking will also come in waves, and it will stay coming in different waves. I think most of us here in the room know that the radical transformation is not going to be there in a couple of weeks, couple of months, or years. And it will be dependent on, of course, different factors, but also all those factors are things that we have to monitor. Some of them are internal, but a lot of things are external also, especially consumer interest. That's why it's also interesting if you have some fintech partnerships for us as well. They tend to monitor those things also. But it's important for us that we keep still monitoring how it will come, especially consumer interest, but also state of technology internally, how we manage data as well. The last one is also how we look at different scenarios. We really believe in that steady evolution. Sometimes you see news items, for example, Visa that bought Tink as well. You sometimes see a lot of consolidation in the market, but it's not going in very radical speed as of now. So I think it's so manageable to really follow the market. But I think you can have cases for A, B, C, A, B, D, and E if you want. So there will be some price war in some offerings. I think in certain niches, maybe in different products, but not everyone, not every fintech becomes a unicorn as well. Europe is very fragmented also. You see a lot of incumbents also innovating a lot, maybe sometimes faster than certain fintechs in certain areas. And I think the pure domination by those large corporates, I think everyone believes that that's not going to be the case. It's really becoming an ecosystem. So that's why we are also believing in that steady evolution. And for the last 5 minutes, and this is the last slide, just wanted to consolidate a little bit some takeaways in that whole journey. So for us, the strategy, as I mentioned, was important. The clear strategy and positioning was needed, and this was a very short version, of course, to also talk about that open banking does not mean that you have to become a platform bank, you have to become a super app. It's not the same word, they are not synonyms. We can take actions and do things within open banking. And we needed that also to explain broadly within the bank. There are many people who don't always understand what open banking is. As I mentioned, there are so many possibilities. It's really hard to see what that could mean for different people in the bank. So having kind of a framework, what we're going to do and what we're not going to do, really helped, and is still helping as of today. Another important aspect was also that we said, okay, open banking is not a goal per se. To say we're not doing open banking because of open banking. We really framed open banking as how are the opportunities of open banking helping us in other areas, in other strategic areas, in other challenges, goals that we have, corporate goals that we have. And it was a different kind of mindset to make sure that we always frame it that way. Because the same thing in general innovation, sometimes you are incentivized to just do innovation because of innovation. But you have to really constantly think about, okay, what is the goal of innovation? It's to support this or this or this. Also focus on the shared interests, especially the partnership with Kate. That was very important that we took a lot of time to make sure that was really the case. In terms of implementation, the 3 months, what really worked was the fact that we had autonomous teams with all the different roles that were needed within such a team, and they also got clear ownership. So it was really okay. Let's go live at this date. The team got a lot of ownership, and it was very important to achieve speed. It makes maybe sense for a lot of fintechs do these things, but for us, it's basically lessons learned. The rapid prototyping was also interesting, and by that I mean also just even mockups. So just having certain screens and certain mockups, it really helped consolidate all different people with that around the concept of what could this mean for us, what could this mean for the customer, and we really noticed that just having an easy mockup and a prototype, it gains some extra momentum because you really feel in even a track of 9 months. Ups and downs within momentum, and you need to have certain anchor points, let's say, to keep that momentum going, even in such a large project as this. We had an MVP launch, as I mentioned, and the last point I wanted to make is also for us, we found out, and it was maybe expected, that some internal processes that existed could be in conflict with kind of new types of partnerships. So it's also maybe interesting for fintechs going to a partnership that those existing processes, they exist for a reason, but they're not always adjusted towards these types of partnerships, and also the speed that needs to be done within those kind of projects. But as mentioned before, there's a lot of legal and compliance stuff that we really have to do. We want to do a lot of nice and fun things as well, also for our customers, but we have a certain responsibility we have to take with so many customers and a certain role to play. There's a lot of things that we also really must do.
Then I'm
And
going to
the
step
last-
in here because I must kick you off.
Okay.
Just for timing reasons, not compliance reasons.
Using my word, this is the last point I wanted to make. It's just that the discovery is still very important. That's also the reason maybe I'm here for networking. Is constantly looking at what's happening in the open banking world and keep a discussion about that. So if you want to contact me,
People
you can-
discovered that discovery one from the slides further on. So
Yeah.
really great content.
That's the last one. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so warm applause. Thank you for sharing the insights from our data. Don't forget questions afterwards. We do have a panel, so don't run away. And we're gonna go straight over to Peter Lambrechts from Okay. That's the other view from a fintech that is going to bring all these brilliant advantages, the holy grail of PSD2. How far did you get?
Well, I'm gonna tell you about that right now.
That's so that was your opening. I'm
So,
waiting some time for the slides. You're here. So go ahead.
What you've heard tonight is market and broad perspective, and then also with a broad perspective, my perspective is much more because I look from it from the angle of a small startup. We're only 6 people who have obtained the PSD2 license 2 years ago. So I'm just gonna pitch the concept of our product just for you to understand why we wanted to have this PSD2 license. That's an important thing. And then I'll just rephrase most of the things that Mark or Arnaud or Len has already said, because also those are the observations that we have in the market. So plenty of things will be known already or heard already today. So I'll probably be a bit shorter than the 10 minutes that I was granted, so we can start with the panel discussion a bit earlier. So what is Okioki? Okioki is digital financial assistant for entrepreneurs and accountants. It's the solution that Mark said was the number one challenge for all B2B clients they speak to. That's what we do. I don't know the right word. We match the documents that the company has with the transactions that he has on his account. So what we do, we allow people to connect the mailbox, also cloud storage folder, or you can upload documents, of course, yourself, or we have email box where you can forward some documents to, and it will automatically be imported. And we will actually get all the extra data out of it. And then if you link your bank account, then we will actually match those documents with those transactions. And we can tell you as an entrepreneur, instead of having to wait for the accountant to do the booking and ask you which documents do I have to still deliver, you know in real time which documents are still not there, so which invoices have not been sent or which have not been received. And we can help you as an entrepreneur to actually get a better hold on your financial situation. With the goal, of course, to become the financial cockpit for entrepreneurs in a world where there's plenty of sources of information that they have to combine in their overview. So our key feature is this number, the number 7, which is the number of to-dos that you have on a weekly basis. So on a weekly basis, we inform you like there's 7 things you need to look at. Can you help us with that? In certain cases, we can do it automatically, and then it's done without you knowing, and we'll also deliver the documents to your accountant with the ultimate goal for you to be Okioki. And Okioki is the Maori word for being relaxed. And to be relaxed with your accounting or with your financial situation, that's what we want to achieve with entrepreneurs. So we have this PSD2 license. We are an AISP, not a PISP. We didn't get that license because at the time in 2019, when we wrote our license mission, it was clear that the customer experience was not good enough, and we didn't feel like going through all the AML and other requirements that were linked to that. So we decided, okay, we're just gonna go for the AISP, and we got our license in February 2020, and we launched the product end of last year. As I said, target audience accountants and entrepreneurs. So that's in short why we are here. We had a bit of a background. Maybe I should phrase that in our previous jobs. We worked together as well. We worked on projects for financial services. So we did work. The Argenta Netherlands Bank is a project that we did in 2016. So we had some experience with financial processes. So that's why also I think we got our license, because the process to get a license is very, very difficult to get to. When it comes to the hurdles that we've seen in the past 2 years, I will not go in detail because it's actually exactly what Mark has said. So the adoption by ASPSP, so being the big banks, it has been a challenge. It has been a rocky ride back and forth, I think. But the National Bank played an instrumental role, I think, in getting all the banks up to speed and on par with each other. When it comes to the quality of the APIs, I think Mark has said everything that I wanted to say. It's sometimes difficult if you want to match a transaction with a document and there's no information on the transaction, so you can't match it anyhow. And of course, customer experience has been mentioned as well. Seamless PSD2 connection is very hard. If you look at the screen, certain banks are showing to the end users. It's really sad. It's really bad. It hurts your experience. And the introduction of SEA, as Mark already mentioned, it's a blessing. It's also a curse because it really makes people very, very anxious, very afraid of the risk that is involved. If you look at the current observations that I have from my perspective, I see few new licensees being entering the market. So I see only few people getting their license. And I have a question for the fintech community. Could this be harming us in a way that we can't innovate fast enough in the sector? That's the first observation that I have. The second one is legal obligations. We spoke about the licensing process, but after you've got the license, then the whole shebang only starts, because you have to be AML compliant. You have to be the new regulation about outsourcing on European level. You have to comply to that. There's plenty of other regulations that are coming, and they're moving all the time. So you have to be on par with that. If you're a startup with 6 people like we are, it's a very difficult job to be compliant. And of course, the limit of PSD2. It's also mentioned by Len, I think, when he said we're looking at other opportunities like opening new product groups. It's also for us, it's very important. A company can also have a savings account, but we can't show him the information about the savings account in our app. So when it comes to the way forward, I would say solve the remaining API issues. I think we're on our way and it's working. I saw that Luxembourg and France have a longer way to go than Belgium, which is good news. We should push for a broader legal framework. You call it PSD3 or you call it open banking like in the UK. And an important thing I also want for you, Arno, to take along with you. You've now interviewed fintechs and banks, but you haven't spoken to their customers. And I think that's also a good addition to see what our customers looking for in the way they want to interact with their money and their finances, and how can we as a sector actually help them in achieving that. And that's it for me.
Big thanks for being so concise and not repeating all the great points that were made before. We're gonna move over to our debate part. So everybody online, start typing your questions in the chat. You're actually being relayed to me and the speakers. So all the speakers and our extras are asked to go and take a seat. When I say extras, I'm referring to Luc Guillain from FinFlag and Jorge Liebert from Smart for Invest, who is already, well, they are just taking the 2 external seats. So welcome. That's very easy for me to point who's who. I'll go and take the middle seat. So just so everybody knows, this is we're actually talking to a 360-degree type of camera that picks up sound. So I'm gonna ask the audience to be like in a classroom, be very silent. And what is different than a classroom is, yes, you can say something.
Just a quick question. Is the stream going fine? Because I have some colleagues who are fine, and they say that there's a black screen on the screen, so I'm not sure if it's working or not.
They can refresh. Usually, when you refresh the screen, everything goes back. So I invite you online.
You can see that Evanity you have a help desk, right? Answer number 1 that fixed 90% of issues. Plug in the wall. So I will finish my lesson here. If you talk, you will be streamed, and you might not want to be. Yeah. So it picks up any sound. It will pick up that from the speakers. And so for my fellow people, the attendees sitting in front here, when you talk loud, when you start, so you're sure that you will get automatically viewed by everybody. So without further ado, maybe I'm going to ask, I would say to the ones who haven't been on stage, to quickly introduce yourself. So go ahead.
Luc Guillain, partner with FinFlag. We are providing a no-code solution for back office and payments. And my background is in financial services with Citibank, with PricewaterhouseCoopers as consultant, and MasterCard.
Hello, I'm Jorge Liebert, founder of Smart for Invest. As a broker and payment service company, we provide some payment service of POS to merchant and customers. And for the background, I'm working to big company like Borline and also big actor in the markets. And then want to create a new way for successful customers and merchants.
Okay, so the merchant side is represented on this side.
Exactly.
Almost like a boxing ring here, eh? Like on the one side we have the merchants, on the other side the ones trying to integrate the banks. No, there's not a fight.
It's not a boxing ring.
No, it's what metaphor would you use?
A ballroom then.
Ooh, wow, nice, thank you. You win the metaphor award of this one. Very good. So, without further ado, so if there are questions, do relay them. I will get them on my phone, so I will not be impolite of watching my phone and being in the middle of this panel. But I will start with the audience. If you show your hand, I will give you. So, go ahead. First question.
I had a question for Mark. When I compared the numbers for Belgium of open banking, we saw a big shift from the nuclear banks to, from the challengers, went from 6 to 4%, which sounded to me from challengers a really big shift. So I was wondering, which banks did you consider as being a challenger in there?
Okay, so N26, Revolut, Ion Bank. In Belgium, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's it.
I would consider that a complete answer.
Yeah.
It's nice that you pay
I'm
attention
trying to think about
the
how I did
slides,
the calculation. Yeah, that's also
the
the
smart
three
was
ones.
part of the
It's a
game.
really
Yeah,
significant
but
change.
bank is
Because it's a 30% difference.
Yes, absolutely.
But it means also that the global volume increased by a lot, but it didn't increase that much for that specific part of the industry. I don't really have a reason why, but that's what it shows.
Okay, great. More questions from the audience here. Go ahead.
Yes, we talked about banks and fintechs, and it was in the survey as well. Usually we present fintechs as companies consuming PSD2 APIs and banks as providing PSD2 APIs. But did you already integrate to fintechs providing PSD2 APIs? The non-banking providers of payment accounts.
The question is okay. The answer is yes. PayPal, for instance, is one of them. So they actually have a PSD2 API. So this is one of the different institutions that we have integrated. Yes.
And with Belgian fintechs?
Not yet. No. So yeah, if you're one of them, you can give me a card. If that's what the question is about.
That's what we love about these meetings, right? You can invite yourself to become a partner. It's very nice. You can. Actually we have an event following up. We can reserve a table for the two of you, and our commercial team will come and take the partnership commission when it is implemented.
If fintechs today are only consuming APIs or also providing.
Knowing that only banks need to comply. So fintechs don't need to comply, and PayPal is a bank. In fact, that's the reason why.
That's part of the asymmetry in the market for the moment. Big techs, fintechs, all the other techs than the banks don't have to provide information through API by law.
But that has also to do with the fact that PSD2 is currently only being applied on current accounts, and who issues current accounts today? That's not the fintechs, that's the banks.
To correct it was bank accounts, and in Belgium we only interpreted that as current accounts. Some countries
payment accounts.
Yeah, payment accounts. So some countries
But
did
even
include
there, you're
savings
talking
accounts.
about banks, you're not talking about fintech companies.
Yeah, true.
Can I please ask everyone who has a question to speak very loudly, because the audience online can't hear your questions and your remarks? Or maybe can I invite you to all sit in the
What we can do also is repeat the question.
Yes, we'll repeat the questions. So very good for the real-time feedback on that. So for those who didn't hear the excellent questions, the last one was about what is included today. In which countries? Is it only current accounts? Is it bank accounts, savings accounts? And we have the question of adding much more, which is the asymmetry. When will you have the credit cards? When will you have your insurance policy? Yeah, the savings account, of course. And then maybe a question to the Luxembourg participants here. How is the situation in Luxembourg? How was the interpretation on which type of accounts?
It's also accounts where you can send money and get money.
Yes, but so in Belgium it was said because you cannot send from one savings account to somebody else's savings account is not considered. It's the same interpretation in Luxembourg.
I think the only country in Europe where the savings account included is Austria or something in the east.
Okay.
There are some countries and also credit card information that sometimes in it, but depends on the contract how the payment method is defined.
Okay, that's
the
good.
reason why
I will also, yeah, go ahead. You had another remark. Speak out loud. I get the comments.
And that's also the reason why a lot of banks changed their product definition on the legal basis before PSD2.
Okay, wow. So there was some product shifting or some preparation to exclude the fact that so there was fear that the legal department has been casting in stone to make sure they didn't have to open it. That's interesting to know. In the 2-year anniversary, about which we had some discussion, whether it was 2 years and the real anniversary should be had, but let's call it the September 2019 anniversary event. We're here. We could be happier, but it's sort of okay.
That's fine.
I saw that we had bid for you, Mark. You probably want to include some other products too, right? Coming from the crypto world.
It's not only myself, it's the world. So if you have a look outside of .be, you will notice that decentralized finance is getting a huge impact on everyday life. When you look at Africa, Africa has got one of the years in advance when compared to Belgium. And I had one question to Lynn, which is here, and we're speaking about open banking, discovery, and paying attention to the new ways internally and externally. And it is not a secret. What are the new trends, according to you, that the banks should look after if you compare to external ways, let's say?
There are many.
It's not a secret.
I think an interesting one for me from innovation side is also looking at the open insurance, because for us we are a bank and an insurer as well. So it's interesting to explore the different synergies that are there, because the business model of being a bank insurer, especially because we have a focus around mortgages as well. There are certain insurances tied around it. I think that is also interesting to see that kind of the sector of insurance is also opening up without the same legal things behind it that they have to. So for me, that's definitely something that I'm focused on, to see what kind of synergies are there specifically for us.
So for a bank, say insurances is innovation.
No, not innovation. I mean within the fact that the insurance industry is also opening up. So the fact that you have not only open banking, but open insurance also as a trend, that is interesting, because you have on the daily banking side and the apps opening, but insurers don't always have apps. They work in a very different way. So it's interesting to see the shift there and the trends there in insurance industry opening up and partnering with InsurTech and just between insurers to see what the synergies are there, and not only in a traditional sense, as you mentioned, just selling insurance, but the new business models that are opening up to insurance.
So you may have heard about the digital euro.
That's not. I think that's too difficult for me to really answer. I think there are still many questions there. I think it's interesting. I think the latest number was around, I think 80% of the central banks are in really experimentation mode to see what it can be. But there are a lot of questions about it. It's really, I think, still cutting edge to see what the impact could be. So it's still monitoring. I think it's too early to really do kind of a proof of concept with customers and those kinds of things. I think it's not yet the role of the retail commercial banks to look at that, or on the central bank side.
Yeah, knowing Mark, and especially he was expecting or hoping that something crypto would come.
Of course,
of course. But what you mentioned in the bank, is it something to stay far away from, or are they open to discuss it or to look at it?
I think it's also a large part a legal issue for the banks, and also mentioning again around our value proposition, we do investing, we do different investment funds, but it's really based on personal advice still. So we're not into the online investment brokerage, those kinds of things. The personal touch there is really important. And today, we're not giving advice around buying crypto, selling crypto, those kinds of things. It's not the advisory role that we have. So it's still really, really far away to see what it is, because today it's still mainly in investing. It's not yet as a payment method. So it's really, really early to do anything else with it than monitor it and see what the industry does.
Thanks for that. You want to add on?
No, I just want to add when it comes to the digital euro, I think the ball is in the camp of the National Bank. They have a working group on it, and they're currently evaluating whether or not, as a competent authority, they can approve that kind of evolution from what I've seen in the working groups that I've been part of.
Okay, we have no online questions yet, so don't feel left out. If you are following us online, have questions, they are being related to me. So let's go on. Yeah, go ahead. Another Luxembourg question. Speak out loud.
It's not representing Luxembourg per se, but, and I don't know to whom to address it. We're talking a lot about the quality of the APIs and how not so good they are. But the day they would be good enough for everyone, what would happen? There are so many TDPs out there, and it's difficult to get the license, but still, I mean, talking about hundreds have it across Europe. So what will happen there?
I will go around. So Mark first. I will start on that side. Okay. So Mark, in a perfect world, all the APIs are always up and stable and fully according to the standards. What is your next issue? What is the challenge?
I think once we reach that point, we'll sleep better at night. That's what I would say. I mean, humans are really bad at predicting the future, so I have no clue, honestly. It's just that this has just started. We don't know yet where it's going to end or where it's going to go. What's sure is that it's going to be better than today. That's all I can say.
So you like the Argenta slide with a small child at the first step and a long way to go.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Very good answer.
Yeah, I think for the quality of the API is actually a given for us. So we consider that as to be the evident thing to be there. So if the quality would still take like 5 years to develop, then we have an issue because it will hurt our algorithms. So for me, we started with the idea that it has to be there and it has to be correct.
I think there will still be hurdles because I don't think the hurdles are technical. We're a little bit in a good position because I think that the quality of our APIs is very good. But I think it's not only the technical aspect. As I mentioned, you really have to consider the proposition that you make towards the end consumer as well, and tends to be forgotten in all the technical discussions, and it's not working, or is the business model really sound? Is the thing that you're offering always good? And also, I think with the trust issue is, I thought it was a barrier for the fintechs as well. For the end consumer is the perception of risk. And I think that is important, and also important synergy, but especially in Belgian culture, I think with end consumer, it could be different in different countries, for example, the Netherlands. I think that's important for the end consumer to also have that trust and that final trust. So I think there are many opportunities to partner with banks as well, because that immediately gives a lot of trust, maybe to gain the first momentum and then see where it goes. But I found it interesting that I saw that there was a real perception of risk that is also a barrier. So it's much more than only technical. So if the world is perfect and everything works all the time, it's not going to be an explosion of everything. It will be, again, those different waves, will be dependent on a lot of different things. So the job will never end, which is good news for some players, because
well, I'm going to ask your neighbor.
Yeah.
You work for FinFlag, you're a consultant, so you provide services. If you no longer have technical issues, what's your...
Yeah, my view is it's a bit of the chicken and an egg. And if you look at and you make the parallel with payment 50 years ago on the issuing and the acceptance side, you had to build both sides. Now, if you compare that with the API world and you take a market which is a little bit more advanced, UK, 2018, 3 years ago, there were 70 million calls for API. So 8 million per month. Today, they do 800 million a month. Why is it so? Because obviously they've improved on the technical side, but they've also launched proposition to the market. Similar on the payment side. Here it's nowhere in Belgium. In the UK now, they have 2 million a month call for payment initiation. So it's a chicken and egg, and you will see a growth when you will start to have better API, and it's for sure that we need to have a better technical approach from the banking side, but also when there will be some offering like Argenta or OK, and you will have those approach. Another play perhaps is also that you start to see also interest from the major players in that game. Visa tried to buy Plet, they didn't succeed. MasterCard has just bought Finicity in the US, and EIA in Europe. They are starting to build and bring volumes and values to that environment also.
Thanks for bringing the historic oversight and the current numbers. So it's promising to one side, otherwise it will take a while to build. So, okay, from the merchant side, what can you see there?
Then the merchant needs to first step. The merchant needs to be prepared for API, and this is part of promotion from a major actor of the market. If major actor on the market doesn't promote the API, it's be complicated for merchant and end user to see to know which API is better for me. What is the site for me? What I need on my smartphone, on my pen? What can we do for a more efficient API? And I think major actor needs to answer to our customers what they want. And at this part, major actor and fintech and banks and our actor on the merchant can build the real apps API for the side of merchants. And then I think the communication is very important on this part. In fact, in the promotion on the TV show, radio, on the internet is different on our country of other country. For example, from Rick, we talk about the UK. UK, the communication is a lot aggressive with people. We see advertising and all for use API for the merchant side and the end user side. And I think it's very important, most important in this part of API.
Great, thanks for that answer.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding what just Luke mentioned, is the fact that Visa and MasterCard are just doing shopping. They just follow the tick. And in fact, we did the PSD2 to foster innovation. And what you see now, all the big players are bought by the two American credit card schemas. Why it is like this? All the fintechs, but I see in my LinkedIn story, each today someone is cooperating with the American fintech, the American credit card schemes. Yeah, and why are there not banks doing this? Really, like they are doing it, or a federation of banks doing this, because in fact we want to become independent of these credit card schemas, and what they're doing is just buying all the innovation here.
Yes, so excellent question. So thanks. I hope it was well relayed. The sound is good now. I hope I don't need to repeat it. So I'll make the very short question. PSD2 was introduced to have innovation, lots of new players becoming less dependent, among other things, of American card schemes, not mentioning Visa and MasterCard there. And what's happening now is that those existing players start buying all the scale-ups, those that found the markets, but before they're really big and expensive, they're being bought. You gave the example of so I will hand over the question to the person with the most experience.
I can only comment and see what's happening on the market with their strategy. It's the building blocks to expand beyond what was their core business initially, which was card, and now they expand on the full value chain of payment and they want to invest in any rails. And and they have deep pocket, but they are not the only one. I mean, PayPal, Tencent, so the major player and big techs are also investing into some of those rails.
What's missing for me is a federation of European banks creating something
But
on a non-legal.
let's see what EPI is going to be.
Yeah, EPI is again from the European Commission, but yes, really the industry doing something. That's missing, really missing.
It's not.
So I'll pass to Pierre Berger for the legal perspective. So Pierre, and speak up to make sure that everybody hears.
We can switch seats also.
Probably more a business perspective with that, but I think, I know that, and there's some publicity around it already, that the major European banks are currently looking at creating a European card scheme. And that initiative is going on, but of course, they're all competitors of each other, so it's not an easy initiative. So that's, I think, an answer to what you're mentioning. Apart from that, I think it's very logic if the fintechs grow and get proper KPIs, that the volumes grow, that the revenues grow, and that the big players start looking at it. So what I think will happen is exactly what's already happened with Visa acquiring thing, with the other doing the same, but also you will also have some independent players standing there and staying there, but they will also consolidate other fintechs. And some fintechs will die, that's for sure. But that's in all innovation projects, it's the same. It's always going up. A lot of people investing in startup scale-ups, and a number of them survive, and a number of them are absorbed. But you need skill to kind of survive in the financial industry.
I will pass on to Rick. So you say it's consolidation, it's normal, there's innovation, some works, some doesn't, and we just have to accept the market there.
Yeah, and there will be new innovation after that. So there will be mass opportunities after that in credit, in insurance, in investment services, and also in open banking. There will be a bit
Rick, your perspective on that? You're from the banking scene, so you're following this closely.
I follow this closely, yes. And I think most innovation, that's also the reason why PSD2 came up, is that innovation very often comes bottom up. But the number of likes on LinkedIn grows with the size of a company. So the most popular hits on LinkedIn are the ones of the big companies that are bought because of market share, for example. Now, you said that banks are not buying into fintech. I think a very good example is their on stage effect. Agenda, the first open banking example was with Cake, and they did a capital investment in Cake to ensure that the company can keep growing. So there's definitely movement going on there, but it's just not reaching the clickbait of social media very often.
And it's tough stories, because now, I mean, you invested, but for other banks, they will say, yeah, but now Cake, it's an Agenda play. So it makes it harder to I don't know how you.
No, because it wasn't that it was a convertible loan as well, and that was also part of the win-win-win situation. Is that Cake was also looking at Cake for banks, which you can see on the website as well. So it was kind of a white label exercise for them and for us also to see what, that we can enhance it. So there, the win-win-win was important, but also let each other have their own market, because if you check it out in the Agenda app. We don't want to copy everything that Cake does. Cake has their own market share. Maybe it has a specific audience that they want to appeal to, and that's fine for us. We don't want to take everything, but we want to take the thing that is interesting for our customers as well, and let both sides be happy and expand and grow. And I think that is, or we thought that is kind of a winning formula as well, if you can find that kind of strategy. But to pick up on the Visa part as well, I think what you're also underestimating is that it is very difficult, and maybe you could agree, is that selling to banks takes a very long time, it's very difficult. But there are players that are very good at selling to banks, and those are Visa and MasterCard, and they know the industry, they're trusted brands, and that is still very, very important. But also, I think it's part of the broader innovation that you have a lot of companies that need exist. But I hope so that that type of innovation doesn't go away Does it really matter what kind of brand is behind it if the innovation stays? As you said, they have different rails. If that new rail still exists, they're not killing the rails because it will still exist. Doesn't matter if it's MasterCard. Okay, maybe they're consolidating. It's a different kind of discussion. But maybe it's good that kind of innovation is being adopted. The last point I wanted to make is, and Visa and MasterCard are very public on this. They don't want to be a payments company anymore. They want to be a data company, and they want to do much more than that. So it's part of their digital transformation or their general strategic transformation that they're doing to keep up with the industry. So I think there are many reasons for it why they're doing it. But some could be good, some could be maybe less good. Yes,
your remark hit the audience. The fintech executives are selling to banks. We all envy.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people.
It's another agreement that we would all love to be able to be so successful.
But those are maybe the more non-tangible things that you sometimes forget, but are very important in the grand scheme of things.
Okay. Very good remark. Mark, you wanted to comment on that, or?
Just I saw that it took about 9 months to from beginning of this discussion to production with Cake. It's impressive. Congrats. On average, it takes 18 months to get there, I think. And we're actually have meetings now with the bank we met 4 years ago. So sometimes it can even be longer than that in terms of sales cycle. So indeed, yeah, it's a pain, but that's also, you know, the rules of the game, right? If you get into this, you know that the sales cycle are really long, and if you don't have the funding to do so,
this is a fair warning to all aspiring fintech entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah,
have deep pockets and a lot of patience.
No, I mean,
without those,
it doesn't mean that it's not rewarding and that you don't get into a really nice relationship with them. But yes, it takes a lot of time, and that's something that needs to indeed be.
How long did it take the card scheme operators to get to the success that you have the historic overview?
50+ years now.
Yeah. So time is of essence. So we will take one last question. Oh, I'm very sorry. Actually, if it's a very short question, but I need to look at my phone. I'm being signaled here that I can relay a message from the audience. So there we go. I'm getting a lot of pictures which are clogging up the parallel channel here, but here we go. I'm gonna try to. It's from the National Bank, so I was Everybody, are you ready?
Who is staying?
Fasten your seatbelts. Turbulence ahead. So mention was made earlier of the barometer of redefining or simplifying user-oriented processes such as authentication. Can you please elaborate? And how do market players see their respective jobs in explaining to users what authentication entails? So 2 questions in there. Elaborate on simplifying the user-oriented process from customer authentication.
Do we have an hour or?
No, we don't. Actually, we have the drinks. So this answer is standing between all of you and the drinks. But yeah, we do have to. We are very thankful for the regular oversight to be so in. So we will take some time to answer this question. Go ahead, Mark. You can go first.
I think for me, there's a first baby step we can do, which is documenting the existing. All right. So if there are any weird ways mandates work at banks, we don't care. Just make it clear, say it. Or if we report a case about a specific problem with a banking mandate or a problem in the authentication that is linked to a specific contract with a customer, again, put it in an FAQ so that we can at least relate customers with similar issues to that FAQ. I don't think it's the job of TPPs or aggregators to maintain that kind of knowledge base. So document the existing and make it public.
Okay,
that's my first step.
Okay, your first step.
On top of that, I'd say there are small improvements to be made within the flow that you have when you go from a TPP or from a PISP as we are towards the bank. For example, there are banks that when you log into their home banking, your account, your card number or your account number is pre-filled. There's no way for us to do it when you do that in the flow of. So if we want to have people link an account, they have to type in the whole account number. Those kind of small things will really help to speed up and
pass it through the API.
So, but that's also a little bit by design, I fear. The other side. So you're asking to make it flawless, which we would all love to see, but it's clear. How flawless is that part?
It's not really for me to answer, but I also agree on those points. But I'm not really the not really on the technical side. But I think it's just more high level. It's important to have kind of the dialogue and don't be adversaries there. But try to understand sometimes and maybe a little bit philosophical here, but the person at the other side at the bank, it's also a person. He wants to help. He wants to do his job well, and sometimes it doesn't help if it feels like you're always adversaries. So I think there, if thing goes wrong, more in kind of an open sharing what things can do better. You see a lot of willingness internally as well to do things right. And I think that's also important. We're not adversaries here, but we can help each other.
It's nice to hear, but with all respect, you were from a relatively small bank. It was always said that for the
It's different
smaller
from-
banks, it's
yeah.
an opportunity. We saw
That's
that for the larger banks, it was seen as a threat. So also there, not all banks are not equal there. I guess let's go on with the advice or.
I would get out of the club that we are forming and look at it from a consumer perspective. And I believe we should push also for the education from the end consumer perspective. What is it, open banking? What can it bring? I believe an example is always better, but most banks are implementing it without customer really understanding it. There are offerings on the market, but they don't understand what it is necessarily that they give authorization to, and so there is a piece of further education to build up there.
Okay. Last advice, or what would be your advice to do this?
I'm joining the look about this impression because customer and need to be informed about the process, about the workflow and what is the way for the easiest way to have access to all that all that thing of the API, the email and all parts of the state. Then we need to promote them for communication, promotion, and information as a better way, I think, for that.
So I'll summarize that: make the journey flawless and communicate to
Yes,
everybody that
exactly.
this is what you consent to and what the advantages are.
Exactly.
Okay, that's great. Well, I would like to thank Anthony mentioned from the National Bank for giving the excellent closing question. We had more questions, but the good news is for those that made it over here with the COVID Safe app, we have drinks and we can finally raise the glass and drink it without a mask, which would have been hard anyway. It's the time where I pass on to Alessandra to make the announcements of what's coming at FinTech Belgium. So do stay tuned for one more minute and then we're off. So go ahead.
So yeah, first of all, thank you for everyone to be there tonight. Thank you for DLA Piper to have hosted us. Great thank you to Post Consultant. I'd like to give the floor for 5 more minutes.
I can see he's going to do it in less than 5 minutes.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much.
Just to get the conclusions of everything we've heard tonight. So please, I'll bring the camera back.
Okay, so indeed, I have a kind of pressure to be very efficient, concise. So I'll try to do my best. So I will just give a few words about what we heard during the presentation. We're basically talking about question of quality of the APIs, quality of the data. We're talking about globalization of the service, of the regulatory aspects. We were talking about how to improve the opening to the fintech value proposition, but with a very important point that was mentioned as well, keep the DNA of what the banks want to put on the table as value proposition, focus on the customer journey by keeping in mind as well that there is a question of trust, that there is a question, and that was just mentioned, of having good knowledge base to really document, explain how the whole process is working, and then thinking a little bit how we can go further in the direction of an open finance instead of open banking, like putting the first step towards a potential PSD3. Looking to the different points that were mentioned on the panel, there is a question that was raised, looking to what could be the role of the neobank in promoting the different solutions, different APIs, or are they positioned in comparison to the classical banks? We were mentioning Revolut, N26, and so on as potential good example to follow. Fintechs as well are currently seen as only API consumer, but how can we have a mix of API provider, API consumer at the same time? It's certainly something to follow up. Open banking currently could be extended to new services. We're discussing about open insurance, and the question that was raised behind that is how can we create between the different service of open finance globally, how can we create synergies between all the different players in those different fields? What are the new shifts? What are the new opportunities? Or can we consider all the different legal aspects for all that to progress? Question of going into the direction of digital euro investment advisory was raised, but probably not mature enough to completely include that in a global investment advisory strategy. Focus was as well bring on the customer perception and experience and trust. And when looking to the end user, there was the question raised on how are the merchants informed as well about the potential to develop, like we have in the UK, payment initiation, because we're still in a process where account information is quite well developed. Payment initiation, there's still a lot of work, and it means that there is an absolute need to have a good level of information, good level of documentation, or how can this be developed at the merchant side, and have as well a very good education from the end user perspective, and give them a very clear view on what could be the benefit. Last but not least, what will be the positioning of the classical payment schemes? We're mentioning that we were in a process where there was an opening to new solution to be independent of the payment scheme. We're seeing that they are coming back and forth by making some acquisition, by trying to propose again new services to the bank I would say to re-enter by another door. That will certainly be something to follow in the coming months, years, and to see how the positioning of those schemes will be from a classical global payment service provider to a data service provider. And I will conclude on that to leave you all enjoy the drink and food.
And before you go there, you have to watch. That's how it works. Otherwise, you wouldn't
Can I
have
have
paid
a
attention.
picture?
We'll have a picture, but during that picture, you will give the other information.
Okay, so
We're gonna ask you. We'll do some multitasking here. Everybody, pay attention to Alessandra.
So yes, I'm not going to last for long. As you can see, we have a lot of upcoming events. And I will draw your attention on our big Digital Finance Summit. We're still looking for speakers. We are still, there is a pitch battle, a European one. So if you're interested in competing, don't hesitate to send to fill in the form. We have already a nice lineup, and I'm not going to say much more because it's going to come, all the information is going to come up on social media very soon. But yeah, it's the big mass, the big Belgian mass that is the unmissable one. Otherwise, if you want to stay tuned, go on our fintechbelgium.be website. We've done it all. We have a calendar on which you can follow us. You can follow everything that we do, but also all our partners. In less than 2 weeks, we are at Money 2020, and we're organizing a Benelux event together with Holland FinTech and the Loft. And so you're all more than welcome to join if you're in Amsterdam.
It's not cheap. Just warning out there.
The Money 2020 is not cheap, but we for our members we negotiated good prices.
We made it less expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah, well done.
Very proud. And and the event, the Benelux event, is free.
Very good.
And so another thing is that you can find us. You can always meet us at FIRE, the FinTech, InsurTech, RegTech, etc., or ecosystem digital finance hub. It's right in front of Central Station, not very far from here. Some of our members have joined us, and maybe I can also ask you to, Marc, to maybe explain what we've made together last week in a few words.
In fact, we just founded the Association of blockchain association of crypto exchanges and custodians, because the future is clearly on digital, I would say, or crypto. And this will be the main point, representing every company that has got to face AML issues, KYC, reporting to financial intelligence units in terms of developing new financial products. So you will be able to become a member of this new association, where FinTech Belgium, and we're very proud of it, is a member and a director. Thank you.
Thank you.
FinTech.
Thank you, Mark. And so we are there with also the European Digital Finance Association. We are there, we organize breakfast thanks to partners such as DLA Piper and some others. We do bi-weekly breakfast, so open to anyone, so please join us. It's going to be very informal and very nice to network. And also open office hours for our members, where our partners will offer free advice to all our members. So if you're interested also, it's a business lounge, so if you have a meeting in Brussels and you're commuting, you want to stay and just visit us or rent an office, we are there for you as well. Our newsletter, as usual, don't hesitate to go on our website, and a big thank you again for all our members, but especially all our partners. We have a long list now, and it's really, really heartwarming for us who have been working hard for this. So thank you again to everyone, and I'm not keeping you for longer. I invite you for a drink and food upstairs. Please don't leave anything in the room, because everything is going to disappear. So we're going to lock everything. So don't forget anything. Thank you very much. Come. Yeah. The
You have to be more successful. I'll hold it up. Yeah? That was easy. Easiest part.